Bowling with the Fef.
Bowling with the Fef.
Are you ready?
Ready.
Your bowling stories.
They found you.
They did.
Fef's all over.
Every week.
Bowling has picked back up again.
Live.
UW Whitewater.
There it is.
Why the fedora? Do I look good in it?
I think you look great in it.
I want to challenge Skylar Pence.
Mike Hatton.
Let's do this.
Roll 'em.
This is Bowling with the Fef.
We are once again Bowling with the Fef coming at you on a Thursday evening. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the show where we share your bowling story live on our YouTube channel, and very happy to do that once again. We got a great bowling story, a great visual bowling story tonight, as it were, and I'm very excited to have this guest on. We've been talking about it for quite a while, and tonight we finally get to chop it up. So looking forward to getting right into this one. A new tournament weekend in central Wisconsin coming up in January is not a replacement for Midwest Bowl Fest, but certainly has all the high-level competition that event did before it was canceled several weeks ago. Wisconsin State USBC Masters Weekend is coming up January 10th and 11th at Dale's Weston Lanes in Weston, Wisconsin, which is near Wausau. The announcement came on this one a couple nights ago. It includes the Wisconsin Masters on Saturday the 10th, then the Badger Queens and the Youth Masters on Sunday the 11th. The youth event does have an optional junior gold qualifier. Winners of the Masters and the Queens earn paid entries into their national tournament counterparts, plus cash prizes. Proprietor Sarah Elliott says the Masters weekend is not a replacement for Midwest Bowl Fest, which was canceled several weeks ago because of a lack of entries. This was in the works before that decision. She says it will bounce around the state over the years. Registration link and more details on the format and other information on the events is on the Bowling with the Fef Facebook page right now. Well, Senior Team USA finished off competition today and yesterday at the IBF World Seniors Championships in Reno by taking 3 Masters medals. John Janowitz grabbed another gold medal, as he did like he does in most senior events these days, running over just about everyone in his path. He ended up with 5 medals, including golds in singles, team, all events, and masters. He and Chris Barnes also took bronze in doubles. The bowlers from 37 nations competed on a 42-foot pattern designed specifically for the event at the National Bowling Stadium. And congratulations to all the medal winners. You can see them there in the men's and the women's categories. Lots of great bowling action among those seniors there in Reno. So glad to see those performances from those great competitors, many of whom you know very well. So some sad bowling news tonight out of the Northeast. As a PWBA member has died. Jennifer Horkruszak competed at the PWBA Twin Cities Open in 2022. This is the video that you're seeing here. She did cash in that event. She died on Sunday. Her obituary said that she received a master's in business administration from UConn in the year 2000 and spent 21 years working for Southern Connecticut State University as an accountant. She loved animals, especially dogs. Her funeral is scheduled for tomorrow in Connecticut. She was just 47 years old. A lot of great tributes pouring out for her on social media. Very sorry for that loss, her being so young, and always sad to lose someone who is in bowling, out of bowling, whatever the case, but certainly someone like Jennifer who was so well respected in the bowling community. So certainly sad to hear that news, and best to her family and those who knew her and respected her as well. Well, only the best tournaments get held twice in the same calendar year. And of course, I'd count the Big Ten championships among them. You'll see the 25-20-26 version live here on the channel. Returning to Bolero Mount Prospect on December 6th and 7th, we've got 10 schools bringing men's and women's teams, varsities, and JV programs trying to prove their worth among their rivals. The last Big Ten championships was at the end of January and beginning of February. Saw Ohio State's men's team and Purdue's women's team leave Bolero Mount Prospect as champions on the varsity side. Who will it be this year? Watch live to find out. We'll have all the coverage right here on the channel. And about a week before that, we go back to the 70s. It's kind of looking like Feftacular 4, the night before Thanksgiving, Wednesday, November 26th, the celebration of League Night at Village Bowl and Social, Menominee Falls, Wisconsin, just outside of Milwaukee, where I will be competing with the Serbskis Club, the world champion Serbskis Club. As you can see, the anchor bowler, Mark Ignatowski, there in center circle. We will, of course, be bowling for Chip Magnet Salsa. Be there or check it out live on the channel. We'll be live streaming that one as well. Don't forget, we've got a merch store at etsy.com/shop/bowlingwiththefefco. If you are in the Eau Claire, Wisconsin area or nearby, check out Jerry's Score More Bowling Supply for all your bowling needs. 715-559-1822 will get you on the line with Jerry. He's got everything you need and then some. Visionary Video Hub for video production, live streaming, voiceover, and podcasting. Find out more at visionaryvideohub.com. And, of course, the aforementioned Chip Magnet Salsa. If you go to chipmagnetsalsa.com, order a 6-pack of jars and enter this promo code at checkout, BWTF2025. You'll get 25% off your order. No limit on that also. Chip Magnet, raise your snack standards, and a big thank you to all the supporters of Bowling with the Fef. Appreciate each and every one of you. Well, if any old picture is worth 1,000 words, then get ready for more words than you can possibly say. Tonight's guest has traveled all over the country and beyond with his camera, snapping photos of vintage centers that you can find on his website, vintagebowling.net. And let me tell you, they are something to see. I'm going to put up a little screenshot of it right now so you can see what it looks like. There's kind of a carousel there to give you a little taste of some of these images. It's also on the corresponding Facebook page called Maple Plus Pine by Kevin Hahn. Now, these are not some ordinary pictures that some iPhone-wielding wannabe would plop up on Instagram. These images are bringing out character, the charm, and really the heart of and feel of these centers from the early days of the sport to the days of star shields and magic triangles of several decades ago. It's really cool stuff, and I would encourage you, when you have time, to certainly check out his website because it's got all kinds of great stuff on it. I get sucked into these pictures very easily because not only am I a fan of the vintage centers, but I'm a huge fan of his work. So tonight's show, called Colors That Pop, is with the man behind the lens, Kevin Hahn of suburban Seattle. Kevin, welcome to Bowling with the Fef. This has been a long time coming. And first thing I'm going to do is apologize because right before the open, I blew my nose and forgot to cut my microphone. So you probably heard that. But welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Fef. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And I appreciate you taking the time to get this together. I know we've been talking for a while now about meeting up, and it's been a challenge sometimes getting our schedules to align and all the stars to line up. But we're here, and I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to our chat tonight.
Yeah, me too. Let's start out with, I guess, the obvious question, because our sport has changed. You and I are about, similar age, similar vintage. And we've seen the transition in bowling balls from urethane to reactive, in lane oil from short oil to whatever it is we face now. And, written scoring to automatic scoring, wood lanes to synthetic. We've seen a lot of that stuff firsthand. Why vintage? Why is vintage something that you, I guess, have an affinity for?
Well, I've been a bowler my whole life, and I in fact tell people that I was born to bowl, or that I maybe started in the womb, because my parents were bowlers and they met in a mixed league here in Seattle in the late 60s. And so that's how I got started. I tagged along. And when you spend that much time with your folks at a bowling center, there's It's just a matter of time before you want to try it out and see how you do at it. So that's how I got into bowling, and I've been doing it ever since I was about 8, 9 years old when I joined my first YABA league. But the place where I got my start was a place called Imperial Lanes in South Seattle. It's where my folks met. It's where I joined. It's where I rolled my first bowling ball, where I joined my first youth league. And that's where I have most of my earliest memories of actually being a bowler and rolling it down a lane for score and for sanctioned junior league. And it was, it was a Brunswick Gold Crown, single lane Gold Crown masking unit, had that kind of peach sort of salmon motif, and it had the long ball returns with the hand dryer in the end and the long rack with the hood that went all the way out to the foul line. When I started bowling, they had telescores, with the hot plate that would burn your wrist. And in fact, as a junior bowler, I spent a lot of time keeping score for adult tournaments, like the adult city tournament. And so I got really used to wrangling those plastic telescore sheets and the yellow pencils, and licking a towel and making corrections really quick, and you get yellow pencil everywhere, and you get burned, and there'd be ashtrays in the table itself. So that was just a big part of my childhood memory of my formative years of bowling. When I think of bowling as a kid, I think of bowling at Imperial Lanes. And then I went off to college and I bowled adult leagues for a little while, and I bowled in many more modern houses. And in around 2012, so it's been about 13 years now, I actually bowled a tournament here in Washington State in a small center that reminded me a lot of Imperial Lanes. Now remember, I've gone years without going into even a wood lane house, much less one with above ground ball returns, single lane Gold Crown masking units. And I actually bowled a tournament for one of our local tournament organizations, the CWO, Central Washington Open. And it was in Connell, Washington. And it was just kind of in the middle of the state. And I remember walking in thinking, this is just like I've stepped into a time machine. And it was amazing. It was surreal to bowl. I mean, I felt like I had been transported, because you just don't really bowl in places like that anymore. And so it took me back, and I did some research when I got back home. I took a couple pictures with my cell phone at the time, which was it was one of those like Nokia kind of, the camera wasn't great. And like if you wanted to text the letter C, you had to hit the 2-3 times, you ABC. And so it was very primitive sort of texting and photographing abilities in 2012. And I took a picture and I showed it to some people, and they said, that's really the coolest thing. And it got me thinking, I wonder what other centers are around that still have this vintage look. And what I did was I went on the internet and looked, and I couldn't really find, I could find old timey photos, but I couldn't really find any way to tell how many of these gems, these living time machines, are still in existence. And so I kind of, that first blurry cell phone photo kind of was the genesis of I think that I need to, when I go into one of these places, because they're so rare and they're hard to find, I should make a record of it. I should document it. And I have a background in newspaper journalism and in photojournalism, and I worked in daily newspapers for a long time. So I've been a photographer for as long as I can remember. So the camera for me was a natural tool and a way to document these places. And so I just started going on these little road trips, like from Seattle, where I live, within an hour and a half drive, there's probably 4 or 5 of these little centers. And I just started visiting them on weekends. I would take pictures. The proprietors, I'd call ahead and I'd tell them, I'd like to come by and take a picture. And they'd say, well, who are you? What's this for? And I didn't have an answer. And I So I just made something up. I was just like, I'm doing a project. And they go, well, what are you doing with these pictures? Well, like, what are you going to do with them? And I didn't have an answer. I didn't have a project at the time. I just was a professional, curious looky-loo. I wanted to see, I wanted to walk through and see places that reminded me of my childhood and of my early years of bowling. I didn't have a project. And so that's how it kind of got started. And it's kind of snowballed from there. It started with a website, real basic website, posting a couple pictures on Facebook. As I got some more messages from people interested in the work, it motivated me to go maybe check out a few more places. So then I went down to Oregon, a few more hours away, but still home to some vintage places, Eastern Washington. I was down in Vegas and made the trek because I heard there was a vintage center in Boulder City, very close to Vegas. So I went there, photographed that, started putting them on the Maple and Pine page. I self-published a book a few years ago, which was a very arduous, very expensive project. I wouldn't recommend it, not self-publishing at least, but I found out quickly that there was a niche sort of, there was an interest in this kind of work among people who are into bowling and history, and even non-bowlers who are into nostalgia and sort of mid-century kind of Art Deco sort of architecture. There's a lot of interest out there in old gems that aren't really here anymore. And the fact that you can go and visit these and take a road trip and go into, a place that is really seldom seen anymore, a kind of place that's really seldom seen. So,
yeah, it's interesting that that you speak about vintage centers that way, and maybe it's because I'm based in the Midwest. There's a little more of that has survived over the years around here. Now, we've lost our share of those centers as well, but we've also managed to keep some of those smaller houses around, as I'm sure you're familiar with the BCAW Vintage Alleys tours.
Yep.
That Yvonne Bennett really talks about in terms of of being motivated by some of the work that you do. She had posted about maybe 6 years ago on Facebook. She said, the work of, your work is still very important because more and more of these old vintage area alleys are gone and will be gone in future years. We must document them for historical perspective. Each and every one out there are still operational, and they are a living historical museum. If you love bowling, you owe it to yourself to seek these places out, experience bowling's history, and it's partially the reason why I'm passionate about the Wisconsin Vintage Alleys tour that BCAW hosts. They hosted then and still host today. It's funny, she, the way she described it when she was on the show, she's like, I wasn't sure, in the beginning that I could convince people to, have this kind of motor coach, this plush experience going to visit bowling centers, but it's worked out.
Well, if you're a bowler and all you do nowadays is mostly bowl in modern centers, with automatic scoring, and a lot of times the masking units will be large screens where they'll project like a football game while you're bowling. You see that a lot more. Some of the large entertainment, FEC, corporate owned type places, they're really more like dance clubs than what I would consider like a bowling atmosphere. It's more like a multi faceted entertainment venue. And so if you're a bowler and that's really what you see most of the time, there's something about, say, going to a 6-lane bar or a tavern, and Wisconsin is perfect. And Yvonne is right. Wisconsin has more 4- and 6-lane houses, I think, than anywhere in the country. And I'm sure it has to do with Wisconsin's long association with beer. It was very common for taverns to open up and to add a little extra, revenue stream. A lot of them put 2 to 4 lanes in the back, or 6 lanes in the back, or 2 lanes in the basement. Holler House is probably the most well-known example of that. And a lot of those places, some of them have closed down, but the 2 or 3 times that I've been to Wisconsin, one of them was on a Vintage Alleys trip curated by Yvonne. Yvonne kind of set up the schedule for me and kind of mapped out some places that I could travel to within about a 3-day loop, starting and ending in Milwaukee. There's so many of them, and there's dozens of them that are still there. So if you think that bowling is a little too dance clubby, maybe too much glow in the dark, maybe too much the lights have gone down and a little too digital, I would, next time you're in Wisconsin, hit up the BCAW and ask them for their list of vintage centers, and go bowl at a couple of taverns and patronize the tavern, but also throw a couple balls on a wood lane that hasn't been oiled in a couple of days, and have your ball come back on an above ground ball return track. And a lot of them you're going to keep score on a telescore table. Some of them are high tech telescore tables. They have a projector, and some of them are just the flat table and you just have a score sheet. But that is it's hard to describe unless you've done it, how a retro experience like that, I think, makes you sort of re-energize your appreciation for the sport. And I feel the same way about duck pins and candle pins. Those are both very challenging variations that through this project I've had the fortune of going and trying a couple times. And it's pretty challenging. You don't get away with a lot of stuff. You can't, there's no ball technology. There's no walled up lane conditions to help you or sport patterns to shut you out. It's basically you're throwing a very light ball down the middle of the lane at some pins that weigh very close to the same as the ball. And so your carry is not great, and it kind of humbles you, but it kind of brings you back to the roots of what bowling is and was, which is a shot maker's activity. And so I recommend that if regular 10-pin bowling ever seems too boring or repetitive, like go try a vintage experience. Go candle pin or duck pin bowling, or go bowl in some 2-lane taverns in Wisconsin somewhere, and it'll wake you right up. It's a blast, and that's why I like doing this work. People think it's like, oh, you travel a lot and you spend a lot of time in sometimes a lot of time in a rental car or in a hotel to make pictures, which it is. But I have met some of the most incredible people who are proprietors, who are league bowlers, who are front desk people, and we don't have anything in common. Like, I don't know these people, but I can walk into a center and I can start up a conversation with them because we have this common ground. We all love the sport, and they are energized by the fact that I am excited to see their vintage house. A lot of times they're very proud to show off, this. I've owned this house for 40 years, and my parents and grandparents owned it before me. And so it's my pride and joy, this little 8-lane house in a small town somewhere. So they're excited to share it. And so it's really been a fun way to see America and to learn stories and to learn about different places and to just meet really fun people who are all into bowling.
Yeah. And like I said from the jump, the pictures are fantastic. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I kind of feel sorry for you because you don't get to see them. But I'm going to put a couple of them up while I put up some of the comments that we've received. Base Fury says, howdy, stranger. And he says that voiceover company better not be AI. I'm not sure who Base Fury is, if that's one of your people, my people, or neither. But no, the voiceover is not AI. If you're talking about from the open, that was that was a Fiverr voice from a real person. So that's just in case you're keeping score. But Jay Santos is one of our regular viewers from out west in California. He says, "I'm here."
Hi, Jay.
Hope you and yours are all well. They are. Thank you for mentioning that. He asks, is this gentleman related to Daniel Hong, who bowls at the JAT Tour out here in California?
Not related. I've heard of him. He's a great bowler, but not related as far as I know.
Okay. I like this picture, by the way, because the magic triangle, that brings me back to, junior leagues at a place called Brown Deer Lanes that had them. And then Golden Valley Lanes in Minnesota had them as well. So that's, even Wagner's, which is my current house, had the magic triangles back in the day. Jay says, I too kept score for adult leagues when I was a youth at Yosemite Lanes in Northern California. Cutting those plastic score sheets, boy, that's a challenge to get them cut straight. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Jay says, you don't need permission to take pictures / videos in a public space. That is true. If you are in public, as in on a sidewalk, on a street, out of doors, on a road, in a public park, but in a privately owned bowling center, that's someone's property. So
have you been watching the First Amendment auditor videos? I get sucked into that rabbit hole. I can't stop watching those. It is true on the street, on the sidewalk, technically you are allowed to take photographs and you can record anything that you can see. However, if you're me and you're flying to, say, Pittsburgh to go visit a vintage bowling center, or 3 or 4 of them, I'm getting permission and making an appointment, because I'm not going to show up and have the doors be closed, or even if I did believe I have a right to march in and take photographs. I think that the goodwill with the proprietors is a lot higher when you have an appointment and they know why you're there. And honestly, making appointments, I've done that 99% of the time. There have been a couple times where I just cold called a place that I found. I didn't even know it was there, and I walked in. I'm thinking of Fox Bowling Center in upstate New York. I just driving by and I found it, and I didn't know it was going to be there, and it was locked. But then someone came out, an employee came out, and I said, I'm a photographer. you're not going to believe this, but I'm from Seattle, and I would like to see the inside of your business. Now, if you were coming out of a locked business and you were the only employee and some guy came up to you and said that, would you just let them in? Well, she said, you're going to have to talk to the boss. He's not here, but he's going to be here in about 15 minutes. And so I waited 15 minutes, and he showed up and let me in. Fox Bowling Center, Hancock, New York. One of the greatest, vintage AMF above ground. I believe it's above ground ball returns. But vintage AMF masking units, wood lanes. It was beautiful, and I lucked out. And it's one of the few times that I've cold called a place and they actually were there and let me in. Most of the time I make an appointment. And what I found out is if you make an appointment, they let you stay longer, and they will, a lot of times they will make plans to they make time in their schedule to show you around, they'll take you in the back, they'll let you go anywhere. So I believe that's true about photographing in public, but for a private business, especially when you're traveling as much as I do, I'm not going to take any risks, and I'm making appointments.
Yep. Better to ask permission than forgiveness.
Yeah.
In this case, I'll say that till my dying breath. For this especially. Yep. And I have a news background too, so same thing. Jay says yes, he's very good. My son competes against him, so there's the connection there.
Great. Yep.
It's and you get those stories out of these shoots, which is awesome too. Tell me about like I described earlier, the charm, the feel. These are not just random shots. You're not just taking pictures. You understand the framing. You understand the colors that pop. What are you thinking? I guess what's going through your mind as you're setting up these pictures that you take?
Well, the picture that's showing right now is Colonial Bowling Center in Worcester, Massachusetts. It was I believe the last like original candlepin house in Worcester, which was, I guess in some circles, it's believed to be the birthplace of candlepins. It was where candlepins was invented. And probably at one time, there were a couple of dozen candlepin houses in Worcester. And now there are either one or none. But this center was one of the originals. It was built in the 60s. And it closed in 2020 during the pandemic. It was shut down and then ended up closing. And the same owner owned it the entire time for the 60 some years that it was open. And he operated it well into his into his 90s. And I was on a candlepin trip in New England, and I had made arrangements to come to this center. And I remember when I walked in that it looked like it was straight out of the 60s kind of Brunswick catalog. If there was like a capital equipment catalog where you were trying to sell ball returns and seating to centers, this is what the catalog would have looked like. Everything, I mean, it just looked like a 1960s center. And when I say that, I mean, there were no screens. There was no automatic scoring. There was no sign that said, here's the Wi-Fi password. If you look in the background, you can see the old standing sheets that used to insert into those little frames that would go up into the wall. Those were still there. There was nothing there in the building that hinted that that I was there in 2000 and I believe it was 2014 was the year that I was there. And I just felt like I had been transported to the opening day of the center. I believe it looked exactly like that on opening day. And so that's what caught my eye, and that's what I tried to capture. You'll notice in a lot of my pictures, there are not any people, and that's on purpose. That's to kind of preserve the mystery of, when was this taken, and have it be more about the building and the architecture rather than the people. Because as soon as you see a person, there are clues like the shoes they're wearing, or the logo on a t-shirt, or maybe they have a cell phone that they're texting on. That gives you clues as to when a picture was taken. But in my work, I like there to be a little bit of ambiguity about it. And so Colonial, this house more than any other, I think just it just looked like I had woken up in a 1960s candlepin house on the first day of business. I imagine it looked very much the same with, maybe a little more paint on the ball returns, but it was just an amazing experience. It was like I had been transported. So that's what I try to convey. That's what I look for are those elements that tell that side of the story. I hope every picture tells a story. And what you had said about the AMF house a couple shots ago with the magic triangles, you had said, this reminds me of whatever house you said it was.
My youth, yeah.
Yeah. Every time I post a picture on Facebook or on, Instagram or wherever, that's the one. That's Riverside Lanes, Colusa, California. And it looks, it probably still looks like that today. This picture is probably about 11 years old, but I imagine it still looks like that today. Every time I post a picture, someone comments and they go, this reminds me of where I used to bowl league in the 70s or 80s, and they name the house. So if my pictures wake up a memory for a longtime bowler and remind them of a place that they have great memories or had formative years of their own bowling story, then I feel like that it's a win. I feel like I've done my job.
Sure. Yeah. And it's funny because, that just kind of came pouring out of me. I was going to ask you about why there are no people. And the thing, my guess on that was, again, hearkening back to news, to file video with people in it is you run the risk of that person or those people passing away. Their relatives seeing them on TV and being upset with that. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's keeping the people out to prevent that from happening in the future.
That would be one consideration for sure. But I think the main reason is what I had said a minute ago, which is it's mostly so the pictures can speak about the place. It could be about the design. I think a lot of what intrigues people and maybe appeals to people more about the 60s designs, and when I say designs, I'm talking about masking units and furniture and things like that, is that it was so based on line and shape.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's about line and shape and patches of color and geometric designs. Think about the flagship sort of magic triangle for AMF and the gold crown for Brunswick. These are geometric sort of logos that were instantly recognizable. What do we see nowadays? It's like neon, right? It's not so much a motif or a pattern. It's about turning the lights off and duplicating the feel of, say, a dance club or a nightclub. So I think that's one of the things that endears people to that era, or what I call the golden age of bowling, is when the pin setters first started becoming mass produced and bowling centers started springing up. We're talking late 50s, early 60s. This is the kind of equipment that came out. This is what places look like. And when you find a place, or when I find a place that looks like these now, I jump on it. It's like, I want to document this place. I don't know if it's going to be here forever. And I want to have a record of it because it means so much to so many people. Just the way that I never took photographs of Imperial Lanes when I was 10 years old, but I wish I had pictures of that era. And I don't know that any exist, at least not that I've been able to find. I'm sure some exist in people's photo albums, maybe from a birthday party they were at, but they're probably not great photos if they were taken on film, a little point and shoot camera in 1988. So I wish we had some really nice architectural photos to just kind of bring you back to a place and make you maybe feel like you were there, or maybe help you close your eyes and feel like you're reliving those moments. So that's what I'm trying to do. So the pictures are really about the place and not so much the scene, the people.
Yeah. We've got a couple more comments here. Mr. B, 5047 says, Kevin is a great guy. Lucky to be able to bowl with him from time to time. Thanks for having him on, Fef. This is someone I'm guessing?
I'm guessing that's Brian, my friend Brian Boyd, because Brian told me a couple hours ago he was going to tune in tonight, and we do bowl together, and we have a lot of fun bowling doubles and trios. And he said he's also a very avid listener of your show. So Brian Boyd, I think that's you. It makes sense that it's Mr. B. So good to see you. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Jay says, this man is a treasure for us in the bowling community who love the nostalgia. I agree 100%. Like I said. Thank
you, Jay. Appreciate it.
Big fan of his work. And just, the images are incredible. What, again, take us a little bit behind the scenes, how the sausage is made. What kind of camera are you using? Are you using lights in these? Is there anything that you do to enhance these images, or are you intentionally trying to keep this as natural as possible?
Well, those are some good questions. I will tell you, I have a background in newspaper photojournalism, and so I worked for a small daily paper for a number of years. And I was like a gearhead. Like, I carried around a lot of equipment, and I was really into like long lenses and lights and just anything I could do to to enhance my ability to get a picture in any situation. So I was prepared for all kinds of different lighting. And I was a lot younger then, and I could carry around bags of gear all day long. So I got out of that business a while back, and I'm not working in journalism anymore. So now I have the freedom to choose my own assignments, and I have the freedom to carry around as much or as little gear as I want. So I mostly travel with a really light kit. I use a Fujifilm. The camera's an X-T5. It's a little mirrorless camera. It's a little bit smaller than like a digital SLR. It's very lightweight. It fits in a very lightweight camera bag. I can also put it in a backpack. So it's very easy to carry on a plane. And I can stow it under the seat, or I can throw it in the overhead compartment. It's very lightweight, but very sturdy. So the X-T5 is the camera that I've been using the most. And Fuji, I think, makes great mirrorless optics. And that's it. I don't really carry, I don't carry flashes. I don't use flash a lot of times. I use the lights that are present in a bowling center. The only time I might bring a piece of equipment to help me with lighting is I might bring a tripod, because when it's a little bit darker, I need to use a time exposure to make sure I get enough detail in a photo. So I'll put the camera on a tripod and shoot that way. There was a center in Depew, New York that I went to this past summer. It was a little abandoned 60-year-old place. Well, it had been abandoned for 60 years, and it was upstairs, and it was pitch black. And I got access to it, courtesy of the auto shop down below. But it was pitch black. There was a little bit of light coming in through a window. So I had researched that, and I knew what the lighting conditions were. So I did bring a little portable flash that I would pop manually. So I would open the shutter for about a 30-second exposure. And while the shutter was open on a tripod, I would pop the flash and just add a little bit of light. Not enough to make it look like it had been taken with flash, but just enough to bring out some of the details in the darkness. It was pretty dark up there. So, but most of the time it's one camera, one lens, and one tripod.
Yeah. And bowling centers, really, even modern bowling centers can be a little dark. And as you get into vintage centers, that holds true sometimes multiple times over. So I imagine
to me, that's part of the charm of it. You know, if you have a center that's a little bit lighter, little better lit up at the pins and darker on the approaches, or vice versa, that's the way it looks in the picture, and it looks imperfect. And I think that's good. I don't think every photograph should be artificially lit so that it's all even and pristine. You made me think of a comment that I got this past summer, where I had posted a picture of a center in California, and I got a comment from a guy who said, "Nice AI picture." And it was, it was just a shot on a tripod. And I don't know what it was, if it was the colors of the color scheme of the masking units, or maybe the exposure was just a little too good or too perfect seeming. But it's sad, because it shows that people don't really trust what they see anymore. So if they see a really cool photo, the first thought that some of them have is, well, that can't be real, or that has to be enhanced. So I don't do enhancing. I crop. I might lighten a little bit. The old darkroom terms are dodging and burning, just to bring up some of the detail, or to darken an area that might have a little hot spot in it, but not a lot of enhancement or digital manipulation. It's mostly what you see is what I saw, and oftentimes there's a little bit of cropping, but that's about it. So I took it as kind of a sign of the sad state of photography and sharing pictures nowadays, that a guy thought my pictures were AI generated, and that I had to defend myself against that and say that no, I actually took this. I was there. I stood there. I drove to Weed, California to make this picture, and I was there. So
take it as a compliment, man. Nobody's ever accused me of putting out AI videos, so take it as a compliment. Jay says, I enjoy that you don't fiddle with the ambiance. There you go. So that that says it all right there. So I want to get into some other things. We're already 44 minutes into this, and I've got some assorted backstory stuff. You're from Washington State, so had to hit up past guest Jeff DeMorris. He called you the premier youth tournament director in the Northwest. He said kids and families know that your events are top notch, but beyond that, you're a leader in youth bowling. He said your Facebook group, NW Youth Bowlers, is so well run. He said you're clear about your standards for participation and you use it as a platform to teach civility and sportsmanship. He said you help connect kids with scholarship opportunities and maintain a calendar of NW youth tournaments. So that's interesting because we had a conversation earlier in the week where you said you are not only committed to running tournaments, but you also coach. You've coached since you were done with youth bowling. Tell us about why, helping with youth, running tournaments, coaching, that kind of thing is so important to you as well.
I kind of fell into coaching sort of on a promise to a youth director. And then I fell into running tournaments kind of by accident, maybe out of necessity. But so I moved from Seattle to Columbia, Missouri when I was 18 to go to college. I went to the University of Missouri School of Journalism in Columbia, Missouri. At the time, it was the world's oldest and finest and biggest school of journalism because I thought I wanted to be to work in the newspaper industry. And at the time, ABC's rules or YABA's rules were that you could bowl youth as long as you hadn't participated in adult events for cash, that you could bowl youth until you turned 21. And so I actually did that. I bowled 2 years of youth league in Columbia, Missouri. And at the end of my sophomore season, I told the youth director that I had to move up. Her name was Brenda Baker, and Brenda was a great youth director, and she filled the house and provided a lot of great opportunities for those of us at the time. And she said something like, well, I hope you'll stop by and see us. Like maybe you could come coach sometime, even though you're aging out. And I said, well, I promise you I'm going to come help you out. And so I kept my promise. My junior year of college, I bowled my first night of adult league on a Friday night in the suburban league at Town and Country Lanes. And then the next morning, Saturday morning, I woke up at 7:30 and went and coached youth league just like I promised Brenda I would. And so I coached Saturday league that first year, and I have been on and off coaching ever since. I actually did get a silver completion of the silver course through USBC, and I coach off and on here in the Northwest when people approach me, some youth, some adults. And a few years ago, I was working with some youth bowlers, and they had expressed interest in going to junior gold. And they said they couldn't find any junior gold qualifiers, or the ones they knew about had already passed. So I did some research, and we couldn't find very many. And then at the same time, I had been talking to some of the parents in some of our smaller towns in western or eastern and central Washington State. And they had said, we don't have any junior gold qualifiers over here, and we don't have any tournaments. We hardly have any tournaments other than our association, handicap singles, doubles team. We'd love to have some opportunities for some kids to go bowl scratch. We'd like to have some opportunities for kids to bowl step ladders and match play, head-to-head match play, and that kind of thing. So I said to some of these parents in these other towns, I'll run a tournament if you promote it and organize it and get some sponsors. So all the local contacts, all the bowlers, get them to show up, get some people to donate prizes and money. I'll come run the tournament. And so I did that for a couple of years. And so it just kind of mushroomed into like I would run one tournament here, and then I'd find another town and someone would say, well, I wish we had that kind of tournament there in our town. So I would go do one over there. And then a couple of years ago, I took over running the Washington State Youth Masters. and I ran a couple of independent tournaments for youth. And then about 4 years ago, I worked with a group, and we took over the Seattle Masters, which is an adult kind of premier adult scratch singles tournament once a year, every January here in Seattle. And we fill it every year. And it had been run for many years by the Greater Seattle USBC, which had some financial issues, and they had to actually merge with the bowlers had to go to other associations, and the association had to dissolve. So with the dissolution of the Seattle USBC, the future of the Masters was kind of hanging in the unknown. Unless someone took it over, this tournament with like a 43, 44 year heritage wasn't going to be able to continue. So I and a couple of other people here in the Northwest who really love bowling and want to see history preserved and records continue to be kept and long running tournaments continue to run, we stepped up and took it over. So this January will be our 4th year running the Seattle Masters. So it kind of has just mushroomed into, I just wanted to coach and run a couple tournaments here and there. I probably don't say no as often as I should. I get asked to help out and or I get asked to look at rules for things and make suggestions. And then sometimes it morphs into, well, since you've written half of the rules, would you be able to come down and help us run it on the day of? And so I need to get better at maybe saying no sometimes and being selective. But so that's kind of my involvement. You know, I do the photographs, I coach, I also bowl, I run tournaments, and every once in a while I take a week off or a weekend off from bowling, but seldom.
And since Jeff is saying this, I'm assuming you run some or all on tournamentbowl.com, since that's
Yep.
This summer you were out in Buffalo, New York, where you got a chance to meet up with another previous show guest. His name is Joey Dayer, who Yvonne connected me with, and he came on the show. Just a fascinating guy, because he is helping to maintain and rebuild AMF 8230s, which I'll admit I've never bowled on because we don't have many of them around these parts. I'm gonna pull up your Facebook page, because I believe this is one of the houses that you saw there. This is the cover image on the Facebook page. Now I'm gonna pull this statement out. He sent me a statement. It's titled "Statement from Joey Dayer on Meeting with Kevin Hahn." So it's in a few different banners, so I'll put it out piece by piece. But let me get through the whole thing, and then I want you to react to it. He said, "It was awesome being able to meet with Kevin Hahn and have him photograph 2 of my centers I service, one of them being my home center. He said some really nice things about me and applauding my work that not everyone is capable of comprehending. His work is extremely important to help grow the sport of bowling." He went on to say, "We all have different roles in growing this sport. For example, I am keeping some of these places alive by keeping these machines running and teaching it online on YouTube. You, as in me, are keeping it alive by doing the Bowling with the Fef show and interviewing important figures from the sport and putting them and their accomplishments in the spotlight, showing others that it can bring success to their lives if they work hard enough. Kevin goes around and photographs these hidden gems to remind people that they exist. He's a great guy. I give him a lot of credit for the great work he does. He's in the same boat as me. This is not a full-time job for him. He's an elementary level teacher back home, but he still makes time for this because he cares. And we need more people like us that can think outside the box, to not just do it for the money, but to do it because we care. This is what has been missing." Now, I'm flattered that he even thinks of me in the same stratosphere as you two, because I feel like you guys are more where the rubber meets the road. I'm just a guy who puts you on YouTube and does it for the joy of it. But tell me what you think about that, because he really makes it sound like we have this, this grand function and purpose in the greater sport.
Well, we're all media people. We really are, because if I weren't doing this work, these bowling centers would still be there.
Mm-hmm.
People would go bowl league, and sorry, there's an announcement coming over my work, but we're all media people, and if I wasn't doing this, and if you weren't doing this, these people would all still be here.
Mm-hmm.
They would all still be going about their lives. People would still be going and bowling at the little 8-lane house or the 10-lane house, and but without storytellers sharing these stories, people wouldn't know that they exist. People wouldn't know that Joey would be doing his work, and people wouldn't know what he's doing without media people telling his story, magazines, podcasts, this show,
and even traditional TV news in his case.
Sure. Yeah. And I just wish more people knew what Joey is up to, because I can't tell you how many, small centers, 8, 6, 10, 12 lanes that I've gone to. Vintage centers are vintage, right? They're old. They have 60-year-old A2s. A lot of them have 60-year-old 8230 machines. The pool of people who can rip one of these apart and put it back together, especially in a place that it's just been kind of rusting for a while, or maybe a place has been closed for a few years and someone opens it up. Really, one of the big barriers, or one of the only huge barriers to opening a closed place up and getting it going, is that the machines don't work. Everything else is in good shape, but if the machines have been sitting there for 5 years and they haven't run, you got to get them going again. And you need someone to go through. You need someone who knows the machines to go through and overhaul them until they're back in shape. The number of people who can do that to an 8230, who are willing to travel and do it and spend prolonged amounts of time doing it at other houses, I think the pool is very small. But what a wonderful thing that we have in the form of the internet, of YouTube videos and the Joe the Pro channel. I'm thinking also of my buddy Robert Natho down at Garage Bowling Alley, who's done so many Brunswick, same thing for Brunswick. I can't tell you how many centers I've been to in the last 2 years where it's one owner operator, one person running the desk. If there's a lane call, they go in the back. If somebody wants a cheeseburger, they go over and put on some gloves and make a cheeseburger. And a lot of times they're really good at one of these things, but not everything, right? So when there's a machine problem and they don't have the background, who are you going to call? You're going to go on YouTube and you're going to look for how do I reassemble the 8230 distributor? How do I align the pin cups? How do I change the turret on an A2? There aren't traveling mechanics. There aren't even really many young mechanics, I don't think, waiting to replace the ones that retire or are aging out of the profession. So being able to share knowledge and Joey's 20 and he knows so much. And it's amazing that what somebody with that kind of knowledge, that kind of know-how and the ability to explain it and show it in a way that someone else can follow from it and then do it on their machines, and is willing to put in the time to disseminate that information, not only produce the videos, but also get them out there for people to see. He's kept his centers going that he services, and he's helped other proprietors keep their bowling centers going. Because as you know, when the machines don't run, the center cannot function. Yeah. So the people behind the lanes, I have a tremendous respect for the people behind the lanes. We never see them. The only time we ever think about them is maybe when we're bowling league and it takes 10 minutes for something to get fixed, and you get upset like, why doesn't he hurry up? Well, if you haven't been back there, it's been a while since you've looked in the back, you forget what a tough job that is. but it's really the people behind the lanes that you never see who keep this industry running. And if we don't have good ones, or we don't have knowledgeable ones, or we don't have a good knowledge base where people are able to keep their machines running, then you can't have a center. I mean, so I'm in awe of people who spend their lives turning those wrenches and keeping our sport running. And we almost never see them. We almost never think about them. We're conditioned to think that everything's automatic, right? We cover up the machines with masking units. Now, I just came from a place a few weeks ago in Lyman, Colorado, where they have exposed pin setters. And there's a couple places, Highland Park Bowl in Los Angeles, exposed pin setters. And these places have left the machines running just so people can watch them. And I think I think they're fascinating to watch. And I think people would be really interested and intrigued to get a taste of, if they've never seen it before, especially non-bowlers, get a taste of what goes on back there. Because I think there's a lot more, and it's a lot more complicated than most people realize. So
yeah,
I recommend everyone, watch a machine run, watch a video, talk to a mechanic, and get an appreciation for the kind of work that goes on back there. Because without the machines running, we can't bowl.
Yep. Go back to some of my first episodes. My first show open was black and white video of an A2 running from Cedar Vale Lanes in Eagan, Minnesota. Jay wants to know, has Kevin ever been acquainted with David Yamauchi, who is a legend in our region for running the best youth tournaments?
I believe I've heard the name. Remember, I run sort of these one-off for, annual tournaments up in Washington State, some in Oregon. I run maybe 5 a year. I'm not running a tour. I'm not looking into running more than 5 a year. So I have to admit, I have not made a lot of connections with other people who do the same things. I probably should, because I think there's a good knowledge base for probably helping me run better tournaments. But I just have not had the time to make those connections. But David, I'll meet you. I look forward to meeting you one of these days. I think I've heard the name before. So
okay, fair enough. We're already past an hour, but I gotta get into this story because I know this is important to you. It fascinates me. About a year ago, you were honored for your work at the site of Flores Lanes in St. Louis. 3858 is that magical number that the Budweisers, the famous team from the 1950s, shot in that building. And that wasn't the part of the building where that happened, where you took photos and did your work. But tell us the story of how this all came to be and led to this prestigious award, which you've told me you weren't really aiming for, but came about as a result of this work.
Well, when you make the rounds of vintage bowling centers and photograph, and you talk to enough people, especially since I went to school in Missouri and I spent a lot of time bowling in St. Louis, and I had become familiar with some of the St. Louis bowling lore. Like, people know of the Webbers and the Burtons and Don Carter, Ray Bluth, a lot of those names. And so there are a lot of stories that have been floating around. Well, for years, I had heard that the center where the Budweisers shot 3858, this was 1958. So that's 67 years ago, right? Yeah. I had heard that the center closed in the 60s and never reopened, and it was still there. Like, it was just sealed off and everything was still there in St. Louis. And looking on the internet, there was no information, right? There's hardly any pictures of the place when it was open, just because I don't think people took a lot of photographs back then, and at least none of the scans or anything have survived or at least made it to where we can find them on the internet. But I had heard that this place was still there, and I had made some calls, and people said, well, it's now it's gone. And I heard people say, yeah, it's all still there. And I even heard people say the guy that owns it is going to reopen it. And I've heard all kinds of things. So I I got a hold. I looked up the owner on using public building records, and I called him, and I asked him if I told him that I was into bowling centers and vintage lanes and history, and I found out that he had owned the building. He had inherited it from his father. His father had owned it a generation ago, so his father would have probably been the owner at the time of when it was still a bowling center, the 50s and the 60s. And so I said, well, is there anything still there? And he said, yeah, there are lanes still up there. And so this is a 3-story building in St. Louis. There's retail on the ground floor. There were 8 lanes on the second floor that have been taken out. And then there are 8 lanes on the top floor that are still there, but there's been some roof leaks. So there's a lot of water damage and a lot of warping and a lot of rotting away of some of the wood. But he said it's all, it's still there. The pin setting machines are still there. The balls and pins are still there. The pins are still set up on the lanes. And they haven't been touched because this is not a place that people go into or have been able to get into. It's been sealed off. And so I asked him, if I ever came to St. Louis, could I have a look? And I was ready for him to say, no way. And he said, yes, you may. Just let me know when. And so a couple months later, I went to St. Louis, and I had I went to Columbia for a little bit because I wanted to visit some people in Columbia that I hadn't seen in 15 or so years, but I took a side trip, went to Florist Lanes, got the grand tour. It was amazing. It was a frozen in time capsule. There it is right there. That's upstairs. You can see that it's not in great shape, but you can tell that it was at one time a great palace. This is on the 3rd floor, and this is all stairs to walk up, and this is all manual pin setting. So there are no automatic machines ever installed in this center, and that makes sense because a lot of times the buildings were not built to withstand the extra load of the machinery. So a lot of upstairs places never converted, and I believe that's what happened to Flores. But so he gave me a tour. It was great. I went home and I emailed these some of the pictures I had taken to Mike Albee and to Carrie Williams. Mike Albee is the president of the Bowling Hall of Fame and Museum, and Carrie is the curator. And I said, you got to check this out. I talked to the owner of the building, Andre's his name, and Andre had hinted that maybe he might be interested in finding a home for these, because they were just sitting, everything's just sitting up there, balls and pins, pin setters, masking units, everything's just been sitting up there for 65 years. No one's touched it. No one's come looking for it. He didn't have any plans for it. And I told Mike and Carrie that if they should talk to Andre and see if we could get some of that stuff for the museum for their collection, because it's a huge, the 3858 was bowled there. It was at one time a bowling palace in St. Louis. And how lucky is it that it's all still there? I mean, most places, that closed in the 60s are not there anymore. They've been torn down, and this stuff's just kind of rotting away. I don't know how much longer that building's going to be standing. So Mike was interested. Carrie was interested. So 2 months later, we're back in St. Louis. I flew from Seattle, and I was in St. Louis for about 30 hours just to do this. Mike drove down from Indianapolis. Carrie flew in from Arlington, Texas. We met up with Mike Bluth, who is the son of Ray Bluth, the late Hall of Famer, who was the last surviving at the time. And there's me and Mike and Ray Bluth. Ray invited Mike and me to lunch at his house, and Mike and I are wearing his Budweiser uniforms. This is not our idea. This is Ray's idea. Ray said, "Would you like to try on our Budweiser team uniforms?" And I'm standing there. Part of me is like, I don't think I'm qualified to do this, but also I'm not going to tell Ray Bluth no. I'm not going to tell a 95-year-old guy, a Hall of Famer, No. And if Mike Alby's going to do it, Mike's been one of my favorite players for, ever since I was a kid. And me being left-handed, he was one of the players that I aspired to throw it like. So Mike Alby's going to put it on. I'm going to put it on. I'm not telling Ray Bluth no. So we tried on his Budweiser team uniforms. But anyway, so we all these stakeholders, we kind of met back in St. Louis, and Andre gave us another tour, and Carrie and Mike looked over the stuff. There I am at Flores, and when Mike and Carrie left, we went to dinner that night, and they were really excited by the idea of maybe getting some of that stuff for the museum. And it took about a year to kind of work out everything, but they got everything. They got some balls and pins and the masking unit from the 3858 pair, and some paperwork that had been left behind, and a bunch of stories, a bunch of memories. And it's now in the possession of the International Bowling Hall of Fame. It was one of the happiest things one of the most significant projects that I've had the pleasure to be part of. And then last year in Denver, the museum gave me an award for that at Bowl Expo. There we are. There's Mike on the left and Carrie on the right, and Tom Clark, who also got the same award from the Bowling Hall of Fame. I believe it was for his work in getting that telecast that was down at Holler House, where all the players went down and bowled a televised match at Holler House. And that was a great day also. But I didn't do it for the award. I did it because I was standing in Flores Lane, staring at this history, this kind of ghostly palace that's dark and no power, and I had to walk up 2 flights of stairs in pitch black, and I was like, this is bowling's heritage right here. And if we don't save it, if someone doesn't come take it out and put it in the museum, it's gonna be gone one of these days when the building is torn down. So to me, it was really important to save that part of the sport.
Wow, that's an incredible story. I mean, you go to take a look, maybe a few pictures, and it's so much more than that. And you've got, you've got Jay by the heart right now. He says this interview shot up to my all-time favorite FEF interviews, right up there with Maximum Bob.
Wow. Well, that's I don't know about that, Jay. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. But some of the guests that FEF has had on here are I can't hold a candle, and it's just like I didn't belong in that picture with Ray Bluth and Mike Alby, but they insisted, and Ray insisted that I put on this jersey. I'm like, what am I doing here? Really? This doesn't seem right. That's royalty. Like, which of these does not belong, right? Which of these is not like the other? That's some bowling royalty right there.
If there's one thing I can say about that picture, it ain't AI.
It's not AI.
It's not AI.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Well, with that, let me kind of bring this thing in for a landing, and
Okay.
you know how we do it. We do it like this.
Let's go off the sheet. Challenge a bowler to appear on a future episode.
I would like to challenge Will Madison.
I would say Diana Zavulova.
The better Russo, Lauren Russo.
We're looking for anyone who has a passion for the sport and a unique story to tell.
Man, Mike Alby is an all-timer. If I could throw it like that and not, I'm a right-hander, and not flat 10 all the time, man, I'd be something.
Mike Alby, and I'm going to tell you a quick story if it's okay.
Please.
Because he's actually going to be one of my off-the-sheet nominations.
All right.
I'll tease that right there. But if you go back and watch him winning majors, I don't know of anyone who threw more clutch doubles to win majors than he did. And he did it so calm. Maybe Earl did, maybe Mark Roth did. But like I remember distinctly, Albee in the T of C one year when he completed the Triple Crown. He was bowling Bob Spalding, and Bob Spalding's ahead in the title match, and then like I think Spalding just had to stay clean, and he had it won, and then he 7-10s in the 9th, punches out in the 10th. Albee has to throw a double, and Albee was throwing a coup de C. He packed the first one, second one, like I think the bucket was up there. And then like 2 seconds later, it wasn't. He hit this really light mixer, and they just all fell down. Like if I had thrown that ball, it would have been a bucket and a 10 pin, 3, 5, 6, 9, 10. And he just had that touch to get that strike. He didn't pull it, he just looked as calm as ever. I remember a couple years later, he beat Parker Bowen at the Masters at the, I think it was at the Bowling Stadium. Albee needed to stay clean to win, and he 6-7'd, left the 6-7 in the 9th, and he picked it up, just as cool as can be.
Looked like he was just strolling through the park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I make the 6-7 like twice a year maybe, and I miss it a whole bunch of other times, but just what a great champion. And Mike was great to work with on the Flores Lanes project. I firmly believe that we wouldn't have been able to work out a deal, or they, when I say we, I mean they, the museum, would not have been able to work out a deal with the Flores Lanes owner without having the dedicated board and leadership that they do, because they really believed and understood the value of history and the legacy of the Budweisers and what the Budweisers and their historic score meant to just the game. Mike, in addition to being a great bowler, has done so much for the Bowling Hall of Fame. He's a proprietor in Lafayette, Indiana. He has a beautiful center there, which I visited a few years ago. And he's the nicest guy. And everyone, I was at Bowl Expo a couple years ago where people were talking about an award honoree, and they said something like, the guy is on he's a nice guy on a scale of, he's an 8 on the nice guy scale, with 10 being Mike Albee. So Mike was the benchmark for, what it means to be a nice guy. This guy was an 8 on the Mike Albee scale. So he's done so much for bowling. I don't know if I didn't run this by him ahead of time. I don't know if he would do it, but he was a great champion and has devoted his entire life for the game and to the game, and not just bowling fans, but history fans and lovers of anything that the bowling museum's involved with. The nostalgia, the heritage of the game, it's all for the better because of his contribution. So Mike Albee, you're one of them. You're one of my nominations.
Look what you did here too. You're scoring points with Jay again. Mike Albee was just so smooth and cool.
Yeah, I hope I don't say anything to make you mad, or that you end up like slamming your phone down later and disagreeing with me. But
no, you're on a roll.
Yeah. I think the only thing we disagree on is that you need to get permission before going in a bowling center and photographing especially before you cross the foul line and try to take pictures of the pin setters, you have to get permission.
Yeah.
And then the other nominee for off the sheet is another guy that's done a lot to advance the preservation of history of the sport, and that's J.C. Kramer. So J.C. was a co-founder of the Memory Lane Bowling Museum in Omaha. It had kind of evolved into this collection of, I think, mostly bowling balls. Like I think their goal at one time, I don't know if it was a stated goal.
Sounds like your audio kind of.
Me?
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
You're good.
So I don't know if it was ever a stated goal, but they seem to be building quite a pretty big collection of bowling balls. And I think that one time they said we had almost every bowling ball ever made. We have an undrilled one of every bowling ball, almost every bowling ball ever made. And then a few years ago, Bill Chrisman, who was the founder and CEO of Storm, who was also a champion of bowling history, bought the collection and was in the process of moving it to Utah, to the Storm headquarters. And Bill has since passed away, but JC has continued to kind of shepherd the development of the museum and build it into something that is really, it looks amazing. I haven't been there yet, but I know they've been open. You can get a tour, and you can, if you're in Brigham City, you can stop by, and they're always looking for, undrilled bowling balls to add that they might not already have. And JC is a neat guy. I met him in Vegas, and he's the kind of guy who gets really excited. Like if someone says, well, I'm in Nebraska or I'm in Illinois, and I've got this ball return from years ago, and JC sees a picture of it, and it's not something he's ever seen before, or there might have only been like 50 ever made. Like JC will head out there and go pick it up. And so he's doing like the American pickers, sort of like looking for treasure, and he's put in countless hours and contributed items from his own personal collection, and just poured himself into making this museum just a first-class place. And I keep meaning to make it down to Utah to see it, and I haven't been able to do it yet. But I'm really looking forward to it. So that's another endeavor in bowling history that I would love for people to learn more about, and I'd love for them to learn more about what JC's doing for the industry. So JC, you're also on the list. So that's it.
No, those are two great suggestions. Neither of them have been on the show in the past. So Mike and JC, if you're up for the challenge, please let me know. You can find me on Facebook or by emailing bowlingwiththef@yahoo.com. And we can certainly make that happen if you're willing. I should mention that I know JC is a part of Mike Valenzano's endeavor, Down Memory Lane, here on YouTube, which is a great watch if you haven't seen it yet. And if you're mentioning Storm, I got to give a shout out to my guy, Steve Klemkin, who has his Coach K scholarship, which is right there behind my little banner, bit.ly/Coach K scholarship. He raises funds for some of the students at Wichita State, where he graduated from. But that's a great project too. I do want to mention that Jay did say that as long as you don't recommend string pins, he's okay. Jay, I hate to say this, but I did bowl on him this past weekend. I put up a little short about it too. You can watch and cringe, but yep, we have a little 6-laner, 45 minutes north of me. And I did a 9-pin no tap over the weekend. Wasn't half bad, I'll tell you. To each their own. Anyway, quick turnaround here at the show as far as our next episode is coming up. I'm sure, Kevin, that you've heard of the Agent Ong Open.
I have.
By now, down in Arizona. First 2 years of this thing that Carl Ong runs. Champion has always been an accomplished player from Arizona. You've got Matt Zweig in the inaugural year, and then Kyle Ponzo in the second year. And those two actually just announced they're going into business together, which is kind of cool, under the Virtue Bowling Supply header label. Enter Josh Kennedy from Blaine, Minnesota, who many of us around this part of the world know very well. But in Arizona, he probably caught a few eyes last year when he finished third. But this past weekend at the Agent Ong Open, he broke through by winning the whole thing, what he described as his biggest win of his career. And of course, I had to get a hold of him right away, and he agreed to come on. We're going to talk with the champ live Monday at 7 p.m. Central right here on the show. So be sure to tune in, check it out. Yep, see, there you go. I ruined it. I ruined it with the string pins. He says, nice knowing you. Have a good life. When you fly too close to the sun, that's what happens. I do my level best, and sometimes it's not good enough. But Kevin, I'm glad you're still on good terms with Jay, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories. Really appreciate it. And again, for those who haven't seen the website and the Facebook page, vintagebowling.net and Maple Plus Pine by Kevin Hong. They're outstanding. Kudos to you for both. I'm really a big fan.
Thanks, Fef. Appreciate you helping get the word out, and I appreciate you being a fan. And everyone out there, if you visit my page and if you see a picture you like, or if it stirs up a memory for you of a place long gone, let me know. I will say that what motivates me to keep this work going, because it is a passion project, it's not a job. I do it because I love doing it, but I would say that I've pursued it more over the past several years because I know there's an audience for it and because I know other people enjoy it. So I would probably keep it. I'd still do it, but I'd keep it to myself if I didn't feel like it was worth like making posts and things like that. So if you leave a comment for me and tell me that you're looking, that helps me know that people are looking and that it's worth continuing. So looking forward to seeing everybody out there and conversing with people on social media.
Yeah, let them know, because I can't do it by myself. and I love looking at the pictures. So I hope you do too. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Always a pleasure. And we will see you again coming up on Monday.
Thank you for watching Bowling with the Fef. Pound the like button and subscribe button. It's the easiest way to support the channel, and it's free. Bowling with the Fef is brought to you by Chip Magnet. Raise your snack standards.
Jerry's Score More Bowling Supply inside Wagner's Lane. So Eau Claire, Wisconsin area's leader in bowling products and services since 1988. And Visionary Video Hub. Video with impact.
Email bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com with questions or to appear on the show. You can also reach out on your favorite social media platform.